experts in our panel at this time. But thank you all for coming for last minute because we pulled this together over the last few days. And, and I know you have a team Los Angeles quickly, so we're going to, I think, is sound on? I'm not sure. Yes. Yeah. Hello.
Hello.
Okay, well, I have a little problem. I have a plane to catch, but my function is like warming up the party. I'm a former diplomat, former ambassador in Washington, D.C., now doing political job. To make it blunt, I'm building political armies to defeat Putin. We created United for Ukraine parliamentary kind of platform that unites about 500 members of parliament from 40 countries. So we are politicians who try to defeat all the devils on the western side, but also on the eastern side. We want to get this country ready for victory. We are kind of trying to push them to new Casablanca, where they would shake the hands with Europeans to defeat Putin. Be ready for your victory, get you into NATO. We failed to do it in Vilnius NATO summit. It was Biden who blocked us. We got angry. Not only we, but many Europeans are angry on this administration. So we will try to push them hard on Washington NATO summit. We have 3 months left. They will not give you any more money until the end of the year. So let's do political job. Let's push them hard to open the door for your membership in NATO. It's a hard job. We did it for 12 years. We managed. We are safe and happy. Swedes just did it now. But for this, you have to build an army. You have Cubans here. Thank you. You have American Jewish Council, Jewish somewhere there. You have Poles somewhere there, 10 times bigger than us. You have to unite all your angels here and make a joint action with each congressman, especially with those who voted no yesterday. They are our targets, well, in a good way. We have to go to the districts, sing all the songs, all the dances, drink as much alcohol as needed to achieve the target, but we have to get under their skin and make them vote. Finally, we did it. 99 senators out of 100 voted for our NATO membership. If we don't do it with Biden, we do it with Trump. We already started the job. We don't care who is becoming president. We have to be bipartisan as hell. But okay, we will continue. We will do our job. But Jonas is the one who is doing the real job on the front line. As my prime minister was joking, or maybe not, he competes just with our budget. But still, he does things that we cannot do on the front lines. We support him wholeheartedly. I am paying from my own little pocket to him, and my wife even wanted to work for him. So everybody loves him, and if you can help him to launch the campaign that is dealing with the devil on an everyday basis on your front lines, this is your job.
Hi everybody, thank you for coming this Sunday afternoon. It's great weather, so I really appreciate you coming out here. I also know that these things matter to us a lot. I think all of us in this room here have a direct or almost direct experience of what totalitarianism means, what Russia means, and what the allies of Russia. I asked one of you to have people from Cuba here, which is of course I will get back to that later in my speech. Things are more intertwined than you might think sometimes. Axis of evil, I think it's a good expression. It's talking about a couple of really evil interests. I use the word evil here, and are plotting at this point in words and in action to actually challenge everything that we believe in. I look at Russia today people often ask me personally, and also the people around me, why are you doing this? You're not even Ukrainian, you're blah, blah, blah. And one of my answers, I have many answers to that, but one of them is that everything Russia is, I am not. It's like an antithesis, basically. I mean, freedom of speech, tolerance, democracy, etc., etc. And we're now facing these horrors from darkness, basically. And unfortunately, Ukraine is taking the major beating here. Not only Ukraine, it's on all of us, and for years I've been saying that we are all at war, but we sometimes just do not fully understand it, because we have an idea of a war, with conventional action, tanks, soldiers, etc., but we're now living in a time where there are many other ways to wage a war. I'm going to talk a little about Ukraine here, about my understanding, my perception of what it is about, what's happening there. A few words about the present situation, and most importantly, what's next, how we're going to move on from here, having in mind all the good things, and also, of course, the bad things, the problems that we are facing. A soldier I'll talk to, a Swedish lieutenant who was a company commander of one of the Foreign Legion companies, a great guy who got there at the very beginning of the war. He told me, and an educated soldier, an officer, so what we're facing here is a war that is a mixture between World War I and World War III. And when you think about it, it's a very accurate description of what we're looking at here right now. You see a war that is extremely brutal in so many ways. We're talking both about the way the war is waged, especially from the Russian side, about immense casualties, about trenches, etc., etc. Of course, all talking about much more modern, high-end means and devices and tactics that are being used in this war. Because it's kind of like, this war tells something about the future. And I'm very proud to say, from a Lithuanian perspective, also, I must say, I also know a lot about Latvian and Estonian military industry, and I think I'm quite impressed, actually. No, we're not making tanks. No, we're not making airplanes. But we are making other things that fit so well into the war we are seeing right now. I showed this yesterday, but I showed again. This is an anti-drone, extremely required at this point by all Ukrainian units, because the Russians are using the so-called FPV, first-person view drones, for direct hits, for kamikaze missions, basically. This creates a kind of electronic, like a bubble or a shield around a soldier or a car or something like that. So there are lots of these examples. And as a person, being a part of this, and I've been there again, as Zygi said, I've been for 10 years. Back in 2014, from Lithuania, yes, a short background story. I'm Swedish. I think that's, maybe you know or not, no, but I've been living in Lithuania for a very long time, over 15 years. And obviously integrating and of course getting a part of what I'm seeing, including the understanding of history, the understanding of culture, and the understanding of security policies, which is very different both from Scandinavia and also from other parts of the world, where Russia has always almost posed an existential threat, and here we are again. So when we saw that, I saw that, and other people around me saw that back in 2014, so we got to go to war. We have to support Ukrainians. And again, mind you, not necessarily, I love Ukrainians, I respect them. Maidan was, it was amazing. And of course, always having in mind all the story before that, for hundreds of years, basically. I strongly recommend to anybody, if you have not yet, to read, for instance, Timothy Snyder and his books about Ukrainian history, about 20th century history, etc. It's a very good introduction to this region. And also one of my favorite books is about the independence story of 4 different countries. That is Ukraine, Poland, Lithuania, and Belarus. you get a very good comparison of the story of independence, which is one of my greatest narratives. Why am I a Swede living in Lithuania? Because these guys managed to get independent again from Moscow. I mean, it blows my mind until this day. So anyway, we went to war, and we had the support of the population, and we did this for 8 years. Now again, which is very important to say, I was telling for 8 years, war is coming, Putin is coming, Russia is coming, get ready. I don't know when, but he is coming. And I must say that from all levels, including the political, for a very long time, it was very, people were worried, but we're gonna figure it out. Let's cut a deal. Let's do a Minsk agreement, something, whatever. Let's appease it. And we all see how well that worked. I'm afraid to say, as a prediction, this is very important to understand. I was right then, and I think I'm right now as well. This is not gonna end anytime soon. We are not looking, I know everybody wants, when it's gonna end, when they're gonna find some peace here. Not in any time soon. In Ukraine, and also of course on the regional level, and also on a more global level. Because this, again, as I also told you, this conflict is so brutal in itself. It's kind of essence of the Russian identity is war, conquer, plunder. It's Russia. I mean, make no mistakes, have no illusions about the true essence of Russia as we see it. Russia can change, I'm not saying, but that's not what's happening right now. And so we have to do this, we have to do more of it, we have to do 10 times more, that's my estimation. We are now happy for the package that passed a couple of days ago, 60 billion. It sounds like a lot, right? Well, dear friends, knowing what I know about the situation in Ukraine and of course with Russia, is just, unfortunately, for now, it's great and we're all happy, but it's not enough. It's not sufficient. Yes?
What is it that would make the difference, basically, in terms of arming Ukraine to get to that victory? What is necessary? I know that things were held up for a long period of time, and solid games were being played in terms of heavy equipment tanks and other supplies. So what would be necessary for us, basically, to help to make it a win?
There are a couple of factors. It's not necessarily related to the items, the things. It sometimes is, but it's, first of all, one major factor is speed. We are very slow. There's a kind of jokes in Ukraine about how the West says no, and then no again, and then not at all, and then maybe, and then probably, and then yes. And this has been the case for several pieces like the HIMARS, F-16, it's kind of like political games that last for a very long time, and yes, eventually they come through, but it's just too slow. I can just give you one example. One of my favorite, I have some favorite thinkers of in conflict and war. One of them is Douglas MacArthur, the general, and he said, I think you definitely agree with me on that one, that most wars are lost on 2 words: too late. So it's about speed, it's about actually being faster. But it's also about something else that is much more politically complicated. You have to not only get faster, you also have to get closer. We're now looking at a conflict where we are, as West, as Europe, NATO, US, etc., we are standing at the sideline and we are helping them. We are giving them whatever, football field covering footballs and maybe some shoes and whatnot to take a play on, but we have to get closer, and that's for many reasons. But the first reason I'll probably say is training, basically. Ukrainian armed forces have grown exponentially, hundreds of thousands of soldiers from all of society, most of them with little or no military experience. And we can tell, this is I admire Ukrainians, there's no end to it, but I also see their problems. They have issues with creating a suitable training system to actually provide accurate and sufficient training to soldiers. Many times the training during these 2 years have been less than 2 weeks. I have encountered soldiers that at the front line that during their basic training didn't fire a shot even once. It's not the standard, but it happens. So we have to train basically Ukrainians. We can do that in Western Ukraine. No problem. I mean, there are several locations, several training areas, Yavory, for instance, near the Polish border, etc. We can do that. That would provide some kind of potential risks, of course, to enter Ukraine, to actually help them with, first of all, training, also with other things, but not to fight. Volunteers can fight, not to fight. But there's no political will to do this. I've been arguing for 2 years in Baltics and elsewhere that we have to go into Ukraine. And also another reason for that is that we have to get a better understanding of what is going on there, the war. I can tell you, I've been in Pentagon, I've been to DC, I've been to also other countries, talking to the military and also to the military advisors, policymakers, and I always tell them that you must understand, and in Ukraine, most of the war, in the war, most of everything is upside down. It's all the way the other way around. For various reasons. And I can give you one example. I was in the 25th Brigade a couple of weeks ago, and one of the sergeants told me, Jonas, tell your guys, tell your friends in the West, this is also upside down. In the normal war, you have air preparation, airstrikes, artillery, and then the infantry goes in. In Ukraine, infantry goes first, and then maybe some artillery. It's a long story, but you see, it's upside down. And you can't understand that from Poland or Germany or UK or something like that. You have to be in there. So to speed and getting closer. And of course, the third, which is of course the most tricky part, in any normal war, to win, you bring the war to the enemy. And that is, Ukrainians are doing it, and they're doing a great job of it. I'm actually participating in that a little. But we see the hesitation, let's say from the US government, no, we're not going to get civilian casualties and blah, blah, blah. Oil refiners, etc. We have to cripple the Russian war machine.
But Ukraine has been very, very successful.
They have done a great job.
Naval warfare.
Yes. Imagine if we enable them some more with appropriate systems for that. It's not only about the US, it's also about other countries such as Germany, such as France, and such as Britain. But, so there are a couple of things we could do, shall we say, differently. It's all boils down to one single, it's a mindset thing. We have to understand that we are also at war with Russia at this point. If not de jure, so then de facto. There are so many, and also one more thing, that we have to win this war. We have to defeat Russia in different ways, militarily, economically, diplomatically, but most of all, importantly, militarily. And the political will for that, unfortunately, in the West, is not yet there. Yes?
Thank you. Thank you for sharing your experience with us. I come at this discussion with the prejudice because I'm the president of the Southern California Holodomor Genocide Committee. So in creating political will, in creating a better understanding of what's going on there, when I speak with my American friends, I don't use the word war, I use the word genocide. You mentioned Tom Snyder. I find his evolution interesting and positive because when he wrote his book Bloodlands 10 or 11 years ago, not once does he use the word Holodomor, except at the very end in his author's notes, where he says, I'm a Yale professor, I know what Holodomor is, but nobody else knows what Holodomor is, therefore I didn't put it into my text. I think he would rewrite the book differently now.
He would.
Yes, and he would, because you can tell by his actions and his words that he's evolved.
It's a pre-war book, basically.
That's right. So, would you find better education to the American politician and public about Holodomor and genocide, imbuing it with the never again mantra as something that would create political will in Europe and here?
Okay, that's a very, it's a wonderful question. Very complicated, and of course, then you go into the question of narratives, and of course, I try to genocide is a very tricky word. I mean, it has a very we can start with another genocide, the Holocaust, which is it's like given. I mean, no normal sane person even questions that in any way. As for the history of Ukraine and the various genocides, I mean, yes, Holodomor being one of them,
Right.
and of course, I think one of the biggest problems we're looking at here from a U.S. perspective, as for policymaking, I have been in D.C. several times and meeting a large number of people. Some shall be more, some less initiated. And I'd probably say this is a given one, is a lack of historical depth, understanding historical depth of geopolitical processes, etc., etc. I mean, any shall we say, normally educated, at least Eastern European, Western Europe is a little different, Eastern European, they have a clear notion of, shall we say, the centuries of oppression in all kinds of different ways, culturally, politically, physically, etc., etc. I tend to say, I was a little hesitant about this before, because obviously I'm at wars, and wars are wars, it's easier in a way. But over the last months, with the rhetorics of Russia, so to speak, leaning more and more towards a kind of a holy war, I don't know how many of you who can or are able to watch this Russian propaganda, stunts, but it's horrifying, like, and also how it changes. How the main policy, the main goal of Russia now is to annihilate Ukraine at any cost, in all possible ways. Ukraine is to be no more. And then, yes, you can definitely bring in the word genocide. However, again, getting back to what I just said, to use these very, loaded and complicated expressions and words in a meaningful way, and actually that also can lead to some kind of political changes. You need context. And I probably say that's one of the biggest issues I am encountering over and over again when you go to DC. I mean, this is.
What do you mean by context?
Context, I'm talking about, let's say, the historically ever repeating itself pattern of Russia to try to conquer and take over its neighbors. This is nothing new. If you can go into the history of the 20th century. You can go all the way from Caucasus, from Ukraine, obviously, the Baltics, Finland, etc., 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 etc. You can go back to, as was yesterday we talked about the war in Chechnya in 95 and 96, there was and Dudayev, he understood that Russia will now keep going with this, this path of revision, of getting back at, the lost and everything. And in that context, which definitely, unfortunately, often lacks, we lack this context. People are not really aware of it. So yes, of course. Yeah. Anyway, I mean, I'm leaning more towards the genocide from the Russian rhetorics. At the gate, it's also a war at the same time. So it's not an easy task to figure it out. But hey, we have to defeat Russia. That's the bottom line of what I'm doing. So.
Thank you. I just wanted to briefly add, since we brought up the issue of the Ukrainian Holodomor as a genocide, and it's true that we lack the historical depths. The American public doesn't really know much, but there has been a great big shift last month. I don't know if many of you are following, but as Stand With Ukraine Foundation, we are, as I'm sure a lot of other people here are, advocating for Ukraine. And when we advocated on the Hill in DC, and we meet with congressmen and senators, one of the legislative initiatives we were advocating for was the resolution that would condemn the illegal abduction of Ukrainian children. And why this is so hugely, extremely important. First of all, no one in their right mind would deny this fact. And the second most important part is that it is stated in the UN Convention Against Genocide, the 5 different types of what constitutes genocide. And any of these 5 examples are enough to say this act constitutes as a genocide. And so one of them is the abduction of children. So now we can state that it's been, well, basically my point is the Congress last month has adopted the resolution. It's not yet signed into the law, but at least the House of Representatives has passed the resolution that condemns the abduction of Ukrainian children, which means it is for the first time on the highest level of the, highest level of United States government, that it is recognized that there is still happening a genocide in Ukraine. And if that resolution becomes, gets to, obviously, once it gets to the Senate, it will be passed. Once it gets signed by the President, it will be officially in the name of the United States that United States will basically recognize what is happening in Ukraine is a genocide. And this is very powerful because then the whole rules of the game will be changed. No business in the United States will be able to kind of get away with having any business with Russia, as then Russia will be a country that conducts a genocide, and it's, I would say it's even harsher statement than saying that Russia is a terrorist state. But yeah, I just wanted to add this, and all of you, when you get a chance, if you are California residents, you have just 2 senators, Senator Padilla, Senator Butler. It's very easy to find their contact details. Just spend 1 minute, it's sometimes even less. Call their office, say, please make sure the resolution about abduction of Ukrainian children gets passed as soon as possible. Thank you.
Just as a follow-up to that, we were going to talk about this anyway, but we have the most important power tool in our hands here, a smartphone, as well as the normal computer system that we use each day. Baffle.com. If you go there, look it up, you will see legislation that has been proposed by Baltic American Freedom that is standing in Congress. Each and every one of you can put your name, address, and zip code. It will go to your respective congressman anywhere in the United States, wherever you live, the 2 U.S. senators. It's a powerful tool. It covers all 50 states, including Hawaii and Alaska. The point is that we've got to get it out to our people to use this because it works. We are getting more than a 27% response back out of Congress, but we need people to go after all the districts that are negative at this particular point, but it can be done. Every one of these people that are negative have not been hearing anything probably in their districts that would point out that what's happening now is in the best interest of the United States. It's not just the interest of Ukraine and Europe, but for the United States because big war is coming right now in the Pacific as well. So I would say this, I think that this is an extremely important tool. It is the latest technology that's available. Baffle.com, pass it on to your friends, relatives, and if you have relatives, basically, or friends outside of California, contact them and ask them to participate. So if they're living in the Midwest, Northwest, Florida, these other places, have them go on their sites and go for that legislation. Universities throughout the United States. It's very powerful and it works. Thank you.
I'd like to add to that. I talked to some congressmen and they are getting a lot of emails from the other side. Some of them are coming from St. Petersburg and other places. I am, by the way, a retired lieutenant colonel. I'm also the head of Blue Yellow USA, working with Jonas together to provide aid to Ukraine. I also follow the war very carefully and very closely, and I want to reiterate what he said. There was a general back in the Civil War that said, he wins who gets there firstest with the mostest. I like that saying. And the other one was Napoleon, who said, the moralist to the physical is 3 to 1. I think it's higher than that. And I think in Ukraine it's probably 10 to 1. That means that properly motivated people fighting for their lives and their existence are going to be better fighters than the ones that are there for pay, for mercenary reasons or whatever. So yeah, the importance of getting those words out. I don't think that change in Congress occurred by accident. I think the Latvian community I know, and Baffle and J-Bank and everybody else has been writing. I've been banned, by the way, twice from LinkedIn for bullying Putin. Believe that. Once for life. So the power of the word, the Ukrainians did a real great job in the beginning with their information war. They were really super, but now they're falling down, they're falling behind. And the power of the word is very, very strong. You know, people, we have a thing in the military called psychological operations. Does that work? It sure does. Somebody once bet me that you couldn't stop a tank with a piece of paper. Does anybody believe you can stop a tank with a piece of paper? You can. Big sign came out, says, Achtung Minen. The tank pulled up, stopped. So the word is very powerful, and you got to use it and you get it out there. The Ukrainians are doing a terrific job. I've been following this war from the beginning and every battle and any analysis I can get. That was my job in the military. I was an intel analyst, G2, and they're doing fantastic. I used to teach Soviet tactics, and they have figured out a lot of ways to beat it. So it's very good.
That said, and again, one thing I've learned over time, this for 10 years, is that war is about identity, who you are, and of course, why you are who you are. And one of the things, I definitely agree, I think it's a good thing to actually to brand it as a genocide. I mean, at the beginning of the war, some friends of mine brought up the little girls that have been raped in Bucha, for instance. And I mean, the stories they told me how they had to stop every 20 miles or so and change the diapers because they had been anally raped so many times that they couldn't hold anything, you understand? So I mean, yes. However, on the other hand, I'm looking at an independence war as well, which some of the roots back in what happened after the First World War I. I mean, in Ukraine and in the Baltics. Mind you, we had an independence war in the Baltics as well in 1918, 1920, etc. So, when you look at it from that perspective, it gets easier to fight. You have another kind of motivation. And I definitely see, when I talk to Ukrainian soldiers, I mean, why you fight, you know, why you fight? And there are, of course, different motivations for it. But the most interesting is I'm good at my job and I want to be even better, but more often people say, I fight for my children. I fight for the future, so and I fight for the freedom of Ukraine, as do we. It's very important, again, yes, one remark here, we talk about NATO, right? Yeah, NATO, security guarantee, etc. For me, as a Lithuanian, the Baltics, to me, in many senses, free, stable, prosperous, friendly Ukraine is a bigger guarantee of freedom and security in the region, even NATO. Yeah? Okay, you have a question here.
So, all of the politicians that walk the halls of power in our Congress, our Senate, our House of Representatives,
In the U.S.
in the U.S., yeah. They have seen, they have visited Ukraine, they have seen it with their eyes, they have heard it with their ears. Not all of them.
Some have.
But for a lot of the, you know, when we're talking about, you know, the Biden cabinet, right, the administration, the Secretary of State has been there multiple times. I mean, these people, they know what's going on, and everybody understands what's happening. Now, there's a theory that Henry Kissinger developed, which is the triangular balance of power theory, right?
Like, oh, the good old balance of power.
Right.
Yeah.
Now,
Every Baltic guy knows about it.
how realistic could this be that the United States is really stopping the logistical delivery of arms or slowing it down to maintain, and so that Russia does not crumble, and so that free balance of power theory actually remains intact? Because in the U.S., if we get 1% closer to nuclear war, everybody's
Shit their pants.
Shit their pants, so they can't. And so I think that that's really a bigger part of the picture that you know, maybe we're not thinking about, is that it's behind the curtains, right? Because there's just something that's happening.
Okay. I have to tell a story here. I'm actually a filmmaker. Originally, well, I'm lots of things, sorry, but you know, so I had the honor to make a couple of films about Lithuanian independence. And over the 20th century, you know, after the Second World War, eventually 1990, and I had the interesting opportunity to look at CIA archives from 1991. For some reason, somebody screwed up a little. They gave me access. I don't think they were supposed to, but I got some. And I saw some reports from January 11, 1991. We all know, I mean, January 13th, obviously. And that was exactly that. Balance of power. Don't, you know, it's not going to work out. You know, let the Soviets have their way. They're going to, you know, it's not going to work. They're going to arrest them. It's not going to happen. Stand by. Do not interfere. Yes, you let it happen because, you know, so we get back to the old ways. Guess what? January 13th came and something else happened. And then our fellow Americans, you know, they started to like, oh, after 10 days or so, well, okay, you know, that they started to get a little more, shall we say, tough in their towards against Russia, against Soviet Union, sorry. And yes, you're right. That's a part of the game. The balance of power is there. And not only the U.S., I had a conversation with someone in Brussels a couple of months ago, some fairly high up, and you know, Jonas, kind of over some drinks, you know, I like to have conversation with drinks, people get more open-minded. And you know, Jonas, you understand, you're a bright guy, you understand, like, you know, what the worst can happen, right? Well, what do you mean the worst can happen? You know, the worst thing that can happen, obviously, is that Ukraine wins. Okay, what do you mean? Well, if they win, you know, they take back territories, blah, blah, blah. But then Russia is going to go into chaos, and we have no idea, blah, blah. So the story goes, you know, that let's provide Ukraine enough support so they don't lose, but not so they can win. And so yes, it's definitely a part of the equation. I look at the support, I look at the number of artillery systems, number of tanks, number of fighting vehicles, Bradleys, for instance. So far, U.S. has provided 32 Abrams, and I just like it's a brigade maximum level of support. It's nice, thank you. Yeah, but you know, it's on a specific battle, yes, it makes sense. In the big picture, not so much. Some 150 Bradley fighting vehicles, which is it's nothing. They have 2,000 more in reserve. You should give at least half of it. They already outrage. You can just give them, just like that. They're not doing it, and it will go for other countries. So yes, you have a point. But then here's Ukraine. I mean, they are the fighters, right? These guys don't take no for nothing. I mean, they kick ass. I meet them every day in person or via my very powerful tool, the phone, of course, WhatsApp, Signal, whatnot. I mean, fuck balance of power. Yeah, but it's there. Yeah, it's there. It's in the Catholic. But I mean, who cares?
I mean, there's got to be a way to. So what that doctrine was.
It's very convenient Cold War doctrine. I mean, it's a very convenient back then.
What has to happen for that doctrine to change? Because
Ukraine has to win the war.
Exactly.
Then things will change.
Right.
Yes.
And I
But
believe that NATO.
we have to get to the congressional level. They have their own agendas. We have to go ahead and get to the congressional areas to make it that they respond back to the fact that this is in America's interest, in the United States interest.
I kind of analyze that thing too, because being a military man, I know what it takes to win. You need superior air power, superior artillery, superior armor, and everything else. And my colleagues that I know said we would never do what the Ukrainians are doing, going in without air superiority. We would never go in without the weapons, without the artillery. So there is a game being played, and I hate to say this. You know, we think Biden's our friend and the Democrats are our friends, but they're giving Ukraine enough to win, but not enough to win, but enough to hold back the Russians. So that's got to change, and we've been pounding in Congress. My thing is this: forget the stuff about as long as it takes. Let's go Ukraine for victory, whatever it takes. And that's a strategy. However long it takes means it could take 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. You know, we could still be fighting like, you know, the Georgian lines and Putin likes frozen conflicts. That's his theory.
Like history has shown, Russia implodes from the inside, right? So to create that chaos and internal political chaos that needs to happen, I think Ukraine has to attack, and like they're doing, attack critical infrastructure.
I think you're absolutely right, and
Revolution in Russia.
And the flooding, that's great.
1917 is going to reoccur in Russia, and
Russian revolutions end in Moscow. It never begins.
Yes.
What about the Crimean Bridge? Still exists yet, not blown up yet?
Yeah, it's still there. It's partially.
That's the supplemental for it. There is a chance.
there's attackums in the supplemental.
Hopefully we'll see that change. Thank you.
Thank
Yeah.
you. The other thing that I find my American friends have absolutely no awareness of is the Bluefish Memorandum. And so what I propose to them is if America approaches any other country that is developing nuclear capabilities and says, you know, give it up, we're here for you, we're going to back you up if you're in a conflict, all they have to do is say, what did you do to Ukraine after 1994? And I think if that becomes more of the conversation, therefore increasing awareness, I think it has an ability to have a momentum in this, do more now, not later.
I think what we're also lacking as the Baltic community, as Ukrainian community, as Americans, a lot of us know the history in this room. A lot of us know the conflict. We all know the touching points. We all know the things that are really important to all of us as well. What I propose is that we need a press tour with actually probably these three gentlemen to be going on Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, all the circuits on there. You have a service vet who understands war. You have somebody who's on the line, and then you have a Ukrainian American. We need to be on these channels as much as possible. The rallies are great. It brings attention, to the local aspects of things. But we need to sit down with some of these knuckleheads that are on TV and say, hey, you guys don't know what you're talking about. This is what's going on, the situation. This is the history, and this is what it's going to lead to next. And that's what I would propose to, just in general, to have something like that, a media tour.
I totally agree, but I would add another comment that might make me somewhat unpopular. But Ukrainian Americans sometimes feel the fatigue, or they are overwhelmed by their everyday life, and they put aside the really visceral understanding that showing up at the marking of the 2 years of war, a rally organized by Stand With Ukraine, or showing up to the annual Holodomor commemoration, which will occur November 17th this year at Grand Park. These are powerful messaging by your physical presence, by your putting aside the fact that there's dirty dishes in the kitchen that need to be washed. You have to do this right now because other Americans are watching, and they will take a message from a smaller crowd as opposed to a larger crowd. And so I just continue to try to make comments whenever I can, and I know Mishko is with me on this, and Mariana, that we appreciate everyone that's here showing up at future events and making it a priority. Not just to make the phone calls, which Mishko was talking about earlier and that you were mentioning, but to show up at these events. And as Dante said, the worst part of hell is reserved for the indifferent.
You need a marketing campaign to get the press out there, and that's not being done. The American people are not seeing Ukrainian Americans on TV. They're seeing our representatives coming from Ukraine or from the Baltic states speaking, from the top down. Every congressional district needs to know that we're pissed off about the situation and we need to have action done. They understand that immediately because there's an election coming up right now, this fall. So that's the whole purpose, basically, of the digital campaign throughout the United States. That's easy. It doesn't cost you anything. Baffle is paying for that program. It's very sophisticated, but it works.
Yeah,
At least as step one. But we need a media campaign to get the press and the media and journalists who are interested to start to write stories. There are people. They need to be contacted.
It's an information
Whether it be the Wall
warfare.
Street
Yeah.
Journal or some of the major journals basically out there are people that are very positive about this, but they need to be contacted by Americans who are Ukrainians.
I would like to ask Jonas, what's the situation on the front line at the moment?
Well, it's very important in war. Again, I totally, you understand. Never ever is everything great. Never ever is everything bad. You have to. You're somewhere in between, and that's definitely the case now in Ukraine. Russians are taking extreme losses. That's partly because of their tactics. They have, developing now a tactic where they bring all their soldiers on armored vehicles on top of them, and they bring them as close as they can, and then they drop them off, and they're taking huge casualties. But they don't give a shit. They are bleeding out slowly. I mean, they have to regenerate themselves, and we now see that Russia has lowered the conscription age to 16, for instance. 16. Yeah, 16. No. And I mean, that tells something about it. So, I mean, Russia, they're having lots of issues. We see how they, from time to time, there are local mutinies, and they're shooting some of their officers, etc. So, but it's not on a grand level, but it's there. But the Russians feel that this is like they're being pushed to the lines of slaughter. Ukrainians are doing what they can. They have two big issues at this point. One is lack of ammunition. We're talking 155, but we're also talking of 120 millimeter for mortars, which is one of the most crucial infantry weapons, basically, and they have huge problems with that. I can give you one example. I was in Avdiivka some time ago, and there was one of the rifleman battalions, and they had 2 mortars, and we had mortar ammunition from 6 different manufacturers. Can you just imagine how is that? This is it's a mess, basically. But the other issue is lack of manpower. As a rule, this is not really secret anymore, so I can tell about it. Any given brigade at this point is, as a rule, down to 50 or less % of the number of soldiers they should have to be able to fight. We may just refer to US, where anything less than, I think it's 70%. The unit is considered, unable to fight. And the Ukrainians are maybe now 50 or 40 or something, they keep fighting. So again, morale, yes, it's very important. There are also lots of other issues. For instance, officers. Normal, capable field officers. There's a huge thing. One battalion can have 5 officers, basically. Because making an officer takes time. It's a really long process. So they're kind of like. And again, here we come. You said, what am I doing at the front line? I'm lapping. I'm kind of trying to fixing the gap, trying to mend the hole, so to speak. So I was, for instance, in one brigade, and they told me a couple of months ago. It's just not. So I can tell it now. So Jonas, we're down to 1 shell for every tank we got. 1 reserve shell. Can you give us FPV drones so we can actually cover the perimeter at least, which is kind of like, FPV, kind of poor man's artillery. I did that, and of course I was honored to do it, but that's not how things should be. Again, there are unexpected good news. In the middle of that, one of the most, US is not the only one, right? And yeah, we have Lithuanian volunteers hooray for us. But we also have, France has been stepping up their support for artillery. One of the most important pieces of artillery right now is the Zeza, the 155 millimeter howitzer, which is doing a great job. It's a good system. Now the Ukrainians are starting to produce their own Botan, etc., etc. It's kind of getting a little better, but at this point, actually, I would probably, if it's any country, I don't really like France, so don't tell it to them, but at this point, they're actually making a difference. Then again, you have the aviation part of it. You have all these the Russian One of the biggest problems right now on the Ukraine side is that the Kab and Fab, the aviation bombs that Russians are using, they say like sunflower seeds just dropping everywhere. From 250, 500, 1,000 kilos, and now even they talk about 3,000 kilo like aviation bombs. And it's a horrible effect. And they use them indiscriminately. So one of the reasons why when the Ukrainians moved up their air defense to the front was that they needed to take care of this problem. I just want to give you one. And time is at this point. I mean, if it's in favor or not, as far as I'll probably say probably not. But if we do not step up over time, because Russia is not going to stop. Again, Russia is not going to hold off. It's just going to keep doing what it's doing. It's going to keep pushing its soldiers into that. If we do not massively, in radical ways, actually engage more in this war, I just mentioned training, so some other things too. I mean, we're going to have this situation for Ukraine. On the Ukrainian side, the Ukrainian political will is also not what it should be. I'm really disappointed. Ukraine needs to mobilize. It needs to add at least 300,000 soldiers to actually, to reinforce and replace those who are, and they're not doing it. At least not yet. They're preparing it, but they're not doing it yet. And I'm hearing from many sources that, the Zelensky, being very, very good, the president is very powerful in Ukraine, and they do not make the call because they're afraid of losing the popularity among their electorate, stuff like that. It's a very, very tricky issue. So I could go on. I mean, there's so many parts of this, but at this point, the front line, more or less, status quo. Ukraine's losing a little, not much, but a little at this point. But let's hope for the best, and we have to keep fighting, and we have to get in there to help them. Yes.
So I'm curious about foreign legions and how many are there? How effective are they? How well equipped? And how does that compare to other wars historically?
Yeah, foreign fighters. Very good question. It's specific, but I can tell you as much as I know about it. At the beginning of the war, more than 5,000 foreigners got into Ukraine to fight. All kinds of stores, all kinds of people, all the scales. Some more tourists, some extremely professional ones. At this point, that these have been, things have shaken down a little. So we have, at this point, approximately, if I'm not mistaken, about 1,500 foreign fighters. Many of them fighting either in the so-called Foreign Legion, in battalions that are first, second, third. Some of them attached to the Ukrainian brigades. For instance, the 92nd Brigade had one of these foreign leader battalion attached to them. They are making a great job. I deal a lot with them, and I must say that the people I'm dealing with are very professional and very devoted. Many of them have never left home once since the beginning of the war. I'd probably say one type of person, soldier I really like, it's the U.S. Marine. Yeah, they may be a little, shall we say, raw, put it like that. But in fighting, in this kind of fighting, with the discipline, the training, and to stand in front of enemy fire, not to back down, they are great. And I have seen a couple of examples where actually even Ukrainians backed down. It was too horrible, so they had to pull out. Not so much the Marines. And I've seen U.S. Army and U.S. Armed Forces. I've seen the result of the training that you are giving in the United States to soldiers. It's impressive. Then also we have other units under, for instance, GURDA, the military intelligence, smaller units, more professional soldiers that are accomplishing specific tasks, raids, and all kind of like, some of them are even being, in Russia, doing stuff in Russia and dealing with them too, and their stories are amazing. And when the most important part of that is probably then when they have this kind of like Western understanding of warfare, and they get into Ukraine, I told you everything is upside down. and how they have been able sometimes to contribute, let's say brigade level or something, with understanding or how to analyze a sector. One thing I'm learning about foreign soldiers, as a rule, they're very good at one thing: planning. Planning operations, planning a sector, what to do, how to do it, with whom, etc., etc. Ukrainians, I must say, this is again, it's a critique, of course, sometimes lack this ability, the planning skills on, say, brigade level or up. They shall improvise more than they should sometimes. So that's but as a rule, yes. And I think, again, as a part of our efforts, I have offered this, we're talking about this, to set up at least an international brigade, at least, supported by the West, Western leadership, commanders, etc., but of course, as a part of the Ukrainian defense effort. Let's see how it goes, but yeah.
Get to you. I've also been criticized for expressing my beliefs, even though they may be unpopular. That was written on one of my efficiency reports as an officer, and I want to give a shout out, Viva Cuba Libre. Yeah, prior proper planning prevents piss poor performance is what we used to go by in the motto in the military. And I don't know how many people here know it, but we've lost 50 Americans, patriots that have died in Ukraine. We had 3 mothers, Gold Star mothers, that were helping us lobby, advocate in Congress. One of them was the mother of a West Pointer who gave his life, and gladly, and as soon as Ukraine declared the war and everything else, he went off and did it. So the foreign presence is strong, and yeah, I think they got rid of most of the riffraff, right?
So I understand that Ukraine has been spending some money bringing in mercenaries from Colombia. Is that going to be an increasing dynamic? And my second question is, what is Ukraine doing to increase its own intrinsic production capacities?
Of military equipment?
Artillery, tanks,
Oh, okay.
manufacture.
It's a very common question. Maybe you also be able to add to that. But as for mercenaries, as for recruiting fighters from other countries, you can definitely see that. I can just give one example of the dynamics of a conflict where you actually attract, shall we say, interest and resources from other regions. I'll give you 2 examples. At this point, a major share of the shells Russia is using comes from northern Korea. And ever increasing part of the shells that the Ukrainians are using come from South Korea. Just give you an idea of another conflict, another time is actually kind of playing into, because both these countries have huge reserves of material because they are ready for war with each other, and then they're providing it to. Another example is Latin America. Whereas Ukraine, correctly, Ukraine has recruited from the Latin Americas. For instance, we have several fighters from Colombia, Puerto Rico, and other countries. I've met some of them. I mean, they're great guys, of course. But of course, they come for a reason. They come for they want money, etc., etc. So. On the other hand, we have Russia, and they are recruiting from Cuba. They have training camps in Belarus, where Cubans are participating in the training. We also know as a fact that some Cubans go to Ukraine to fight. We have examples of some of the units I'm dealing with, they have taken Cuban prisoners, for instance. So it's very important to understand that any war like this, it creates also additional effects in terms of trying resources from other countries or shipping in on one side or the other. Of course, we all know about Iran, which now waging war against Israel, but also at the same time, heavily promoting, providing Russia with various kinds of missiles, etc., etc. Now, I want to give you an example of Cuba, about how complicated this situation is. You may not know this, but a couple of years ago, Lithuania blocked a European Union kind of trade agreement with Cuba. Lithuania did it. And now, in these upcoming elections, I know as a fact that the oppositions, those who are now planning, they want to take over the power, some of these opposition leaders, I'm not going to say names here, they are talking to their partners in France and other countries and say that if we get elected in Lithuania, we're gonna withdraw the veto for the blockade of the trade agreement with the European Union, because it's beneficial for them. They're dealing with fertilizers and stuff like that, because Cuba needs that. So, dear friends, this is more complicated when you think. I'll give you another extremely dire example. This is not really public, but I think it's worth actually that you should know about this. The Mexican border, right, which is one of the major issues, especially on the Republican side. You know, so we have an issue there. Yes, the U.S. has an issue there, obviously, and it's being used as an argument, including in the debate about whether or not Ukraine should receive its aid. Yeah, you know the story. Now, I have confirmation basically that at this point that fighters from Wagner are in Mexico. Wagner, yes. What are they doing in Mexico? 3 things. First of all, they cooperate with the cartels. They provide them drone training, how to, drones, drugs, right? Very convenient. They're also enhancing the refugee convoys, the refugee traffic, because they help everybody to get to the American border. It creates chaos, creates tension. The third element, this is a theory, I cannot confirm that. There's a theory that they're plotting some kind of operation a couple of weeks before the elections to say, shoot 3 U.S. border guards. All the tension there. Great. I'm just giving you, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but and we have some severe indications that this is the fact. Hybrid war, of course. I mean, from their perspective, they're doing a great job. Well, let's see. Yeah, excellent, of course. I mean, this is how you wage a hybrid war. So, and then Cuba and whatnot. I mean, these guys are, their tentacles are everywhere. They have ways of doing things and plotting things and planning things to compromise that goes beyond the mind of any normal thinking person. This is not only about a conventional war, it's about so much more.
Targets if the Ukrainian military continues to target oil refineries, strategic infrastructure in Russia, blowing up Gazprom buildings, all of those facilities, then they will have less funds to pay these hybrid wars, of course, and less funds that they can put into their military conflict. And I think Ukraine is doing the right thing by attacking them.
I can give you one more example. You may be aware of the fact that Ukraine now conducts special operations in Africa against the Russian interests. And I talked to someone from Central Africa some time ago, and where Wagner structure is now headed by GRU, the Russian intelligence, where they have gold mines, diamond mines, etc. I had an interesting conversation. What Sebastian J said is great, because nobody's shooting anymore. It's cold. We don't want any more of this shooting. It's fighting. And what these guys are doing with the mines, I don't really care. So they're branching out. I mean, this is just. When you look at Ukraine and the specifics of Donbass and the Warsaw, we understand it goes way beyond that. And this is something that blows my mind, that on an official level it seems not to be a willingness to talk about this, the deeper, wider implications. So
What happens to Putin when Putin dies, when Putin leaves? Does anything change?
Things may change, things may slow down, but in the bigger picture, no, it's not going to change. It's not going to
Is there a question here? Yeah. You're talking that for winning, war should be moved to the Russian territory.
Yes.
And we also talking about a lot talking about providing ammunition and weapon, but there is restrictions to use Western weapon for
It's Russian territory.
for Russian territory, yes. And it looks like schizophrenia from Western allies, because Russia already recognized newly obtained territories on Ukrainians as their own. So we could use, Ukraine could use Western weapon to target strike on the Russian territory, but couldn't do it on really Russian territory. So it's obstacle to move war on Russian territory, and this restriction should be removed, I think.
You have to write to representatives of I guess. No, I mean, any normal. I mean, talk to any general, any war planner, any strategist, any if you want to win a war, you have to bring it to the enemy. It's very simple. If you want to win a war, that is. That's another indication that there's no real willingness to actually go for the win, so to speak. To weaken Russia, to soften Russia, yes, so I mean, this question. We have seen the unwillingness from the U.S. even before the aid package. They talk about all kinds of reasons not to do it, basically not strike it as infrastructure, etc. And I remember, for instance, Gabriel Landsbergis, the foreign Minister of Foreign Affairs in Lithuania, who tweeted a picture of a B-17 flying over one of these German old refineries. I mean, when during the Second World War, U.S. bombed German infrastructure because that's what they do in a war. So this ties into much deeper, again, as I told at the beginning. Why are we fighting? And this is something that also, in my encounters with politicians, not only in the U.S. but also in other countries, I have not the moral right, so to speak, to say, tell me, what is your end game here? What do you want to achieve? What do you see? How should this end? What is your ideal ending or something? And they can answer it. And so this just ties into this, so to speak. That I think over time, red lines being moved ahead, so I think we're going to see some changes. And I mean, the bridge will be gone soon, believe me, one way or another. But well, it's something that you have to talk to your representative, about too. I mean, because they are pulling the lines or pushing the lines formally, at least.
How are the Russians coming into Ukraine now? Basically, since on ships, it's been very dangerous. What method are they flying them in? The Russian troops coming.
They go by the border. They pass the border. I mean, they have a land border.
They have a land border.
1,400 kilometer front line.
Yeah. Okay.
Just wanted to add about the information warfare. Russians are very good at it, and we are not. The psychological operations they're playing, and the fact that they've managed to brainwash a significant portion of Congress is something that never ceases to amaze me. There was a story about a Vietnamese officer running into an American officer one time, and the American officer said, we didn't lose a single battle against you. We won every one of them. And the Vietnamese officer replied, doesn't matter, you lost anyway. And that was a result of information warfare here in the United States. So the same thing can apply to Russia. If we do the information warfare properly, that'll bring Putin and his regime down. So and you guys can help. This is a very important thing that every one of you here can help in that information warfare. You have Facebook, you have LinkedIn, you have all these other media. Use it, put it out there.
One more thing, Gasly. You mentioned about hurting them where it hurts on the money side with energy and the tax there, but you have a great idea. You mentioned to me earlier that we can get their
Yeah, it's just a simple thing. Russians are still sailing ships all over the world. They dock in Turkey, they dock in other ports. Why not offer 10% to any lawyer who can stop a Russian cargo? You have a basis to seize that ship because the International Court in The Hague has ruled against Russia. Just go in there, file the paperwork. If that lawyer gets that, 90% goes to Ukraine, 10% goes to him, or 5% goes to him. And if nothing else, for 3 months, that ship is going to be tied up in that harbor. They won't be able to offload it. You know, lawyers can do those kind of things.
Was the Repo Act part of the
No, the Repo Act was a separate thing. It was basically using the Russian money that we have already seized. But this is from The Hague. You got ships sailing from Russia all the time. And they land in Turkey, they land in other ports, and as soon as you find out, I know there's a way to find out, you go in there with a couple of lawyers and say, we on behalf of Ukraine, want to sue that cargo and that captain and that lawyer. And that,
Is there an actual process of appropriating those ships? You know, I know for a fact that there is a ship that has been seized and it's docked in San Diego, and the U.S. government is paying for the docking fees. And so
that's another story. We have seized a whole bunch of yachts all over the world, and lo and behold, the United States government is paying for the crews to stay on board, to maintain those things, to do all kinds of stuff. Those ought to be sold right away, and I talked to congressmen about that. Get rid of them. It's stupid. Why are we paying for maintaining Russian yachts?
Well, just surely getting into that part of the conflict, you know, transports, sanctions, equipment that ending up there where it shouldn't, et cetera. And I dare say that, I mean, we're doing a shitty job on that one. It's horrible. It's just too bad. It sucks. Both the European Union and the US, we have so many examples of equipment. I get, for instance, shot down drones or something, and I have a place where you make an analysis, and there are parts from US, Britain, Germany, Sweden, whatnot, and then it's just like, and also we have even captured military equipment from the US on the Russian side. I mean, when you look, I mean, we all know about, everybody with some kind of interest in the game, that they know about Kazakhstan, you know, about Georgia, about Turkey, how these are being introduced as transfer hubs for equipment and goods from the West, which is being transferred to Russia. I mean, yeah, duh. And there's no, I don't see any real, again, political will to deal with it. I mean, on a serious level, including, you know, clamping down on companies that are actually doing this. So that's another tricky and painful part of this. War is not only about what you see in the battlefield. So, and of course, you know, the transportation issue is yeah, I think it's a great idea. I guess getting one idea, you know, handing over ideas here. I think that yes, the one thing that you could do individually and also it's actually to formulate for yourself. I mean, why we fight, right? During the Second World War, the U.S. made 7 films about the theme why we fight. All these films has a specific topic, and it's a great. Actually, watch them. They're old, but they're great. And to formulate for oneself and also why we need to fight this, why we need to win, what's in it for us, for everybody else. I made this like myself, and I came up with 20 different reasons for why I'm doing this. So it's just a challenge, you know. That's something you can actually formulate for yourself, maybe to bring it to your representative again, because we have to know why we're doing things. It's not only about you know freedom, you know what is that? What does it mean? What does it imply? What are the consequences?
But it's still positive because still the vast majority of Americans who support Ukraine, it's not negative on that side. The vast majority of
Sure, I mean, not everything is bad.
We've
No,
got to reach
no.
these people, as I said before, in our own congressional districts, and let them know this is exactly what we stand for and why we're doing this as Americans, not as Ukrainians or Lithuanians, but as Americans.
You have a question?
Yeah, I do. I would like to piggyback a little bit about one of the previous topics, information warfare, and just kind of give you an example. Sometimes I meet new people here in US, and sooner or later we talk about Ukraine because I'm Ukrainian. And sometimes I meet a person that's like, I'll say like, oh, it's like really horrible, we like hurt for Ukraine, but at the same time,
I want peace.
yeah, they say like, we don't really want to get involved, it's none of our business. And my question is, while I have my own approach to that, I'm curious like, what are your guys' approach? Like, what kind of arguments do you bring to the table when you kind of like encourage such characters?
Yeah, I mean,
I would say find out what that person's motivation is. Are they concerned about inflation? Well, we are at a global scale of things. Ukraine was a very big supplier of agricultural supplies. So if you want your groceries to cost more, are you afraid of this escalating to further conflict? Well, we've got to end this war now, and Ukraine has to win. Do they love George Orwell? Have you read George Orwell talk about pacifism during World War II? So it depends on the person, I would say. I mean, we have to approach it from an individual level on that conversations. So one way to tell too, if somebody's, I run into all sorts of people all the time, coming to me, and sometimes I ask them questions of, so what do you think of, what happened in Bucha? And I just observe and just hear what they have to say. If they sputter into some political rant and they don't have an emotional connection, I know who they're working for. So you have to just have that, sit down and go from there. Getting into spats online on Twitter and all that other, it's kind of a waste of time. A lot of these people, you have to understand with social media is that social media is designed for you to stay on that app as long as possible. They don't care about the outcome of it. They don't care who wins the argument. They don't care who gets the sickest burn on there. It's designed for you to stick onto that platform for as long as possible for engagement. Doesn't matter which company it is. So, but yeah, you have a better.
Yeah, I'll add to that. There's an old saying that says when you get into a fight with a pig in the dirt, you get all dirty and the pig loves it. So you don't want to do that. And you have the media out there, and you got to use it. I get sometimes on my LinkedIn articles, I get 40,000 hits on it. So people are reading that and they're replying and they're passing it on and reposting that. So I know it gets out. So you guys are in a position to do it too. So do it.
Well, and one more just to add on to that question, because we keep talking about the border, the United States border, and everything else, which it's important. I agree, especially if Wagner's in Mexico. But I would say to that person, the border's really important to you. Okay, great. Where will 700 million Europeans go if Europe is destabilized? Tell me exactly where they're going to go. Do you think they're going to go to Russia? Are they going to go to Africa? Are they going to go to South America? Where are they coming?
I think one thing we somewhat lack in this debate, I mean that I've been in this for 10 years, but I've seen it all almost, I think. I've seen the trolls, I've seen the people, we should have, yeah, sure, but we have to care about this and that instead, blah, blah, blah. It takes time to convince people. Do not expect any immediate results. Oh, I know, I understand what you say. Yes, now I'm pro Ukraine too. It's a matter of patience. It's a matter of shall we say, being a little systematic. It's about learning from the enemy. And sometimes I can give you one cool example I always like. You say America first, and I say, yeah, exactly. That's why you should go because you are the security guard. So go for it. Yes, America first. Then like blah blah blah. So I mean, it's a matter of time and patience. Like the what do you call it? This Yoda. You remember the Yoda on solution, etc. It's about the force, basically being able to tell, to convince, to find the arguments, to refine them, to meet who you're dealing with their whatever concerns, how much they know or don't, etc. etc. I have noticed over time that I have more in common with rednecks than I thought. Sometimes I love freedom too, but but you have to find the common. Yeah, sure, and that's why you should do this. Try to formulate yourself. Maybe write an article. Maybe write, maybe get public with something and try to get some, to shape yourself. The enemy is just doing that. If you go deeper into Russian propaganda, and as a student, so you see how they, not about the content, but how they do it, they repeat it, they find the weak spots, they pound them over and over again. You get, doubt, and, совпадение, не думаю. There's a coincidence, I don't think so. Blah, 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 blah. So become a fighter. It's part of it, information warfare. If you're in that, you're a warrior too, so. Ukraine, Ukraine понадусе. It says, yes, this, these guys, these women and women standing right now, they're like, they are it. At this point, and it's not all about being negative or defensive. It's also about these guys. Do you understand? These guys are more American than you are at this point. Wow. Yeah. So you can always try to learn from Putin. He's judo. So study the end, and figure it out, and be patient.
I just wanted to add real quick. These are absolutely brilliant arguments, but. We stand with Ukraine Foundation last year. We had a chance to have a rally at one of the primaries debates for the Republican Party, which was actually taken here at the Ronald Reagan Library. And so we were there to hand the American flags and Ukrainian flags and say that helping Ukraine is not a partisan issue. It should be, bipartisan ideology. But over there, I had a chance to speak to a lot of different people I don't normally get to meet, especially those fanatics of the far right ideologies. And what I realized, mostly it all boils down to either Russia is not our enemy, or we should focus on China, or we should fix the border. So it is, first of all, you really need to understand if the person is interested into learning something or if they're just trolls. If they really want to know the truth, you can explain that border and Ukraine are not competing issues. First of all, the budget, it's not like there is a little bucket and you can only get enough to either help Ukraine or the border. If there is bipartisan support, both of the issues can be fixed. It's really just politics. It's dirty politics before the elections when they try to feed the constituents to believe that there is some urgent problem and that's the only problem. And if the other party is against that problem or supports another issue, that means they're against you. So that's just like, personal psychological point to get people convinced. But most importantly, United States is spending every year over $400 billion just to deter Russian aggression. $400 billion. That's just an insane number. That's more than half of it, or about that there, of its military budget. So Ukraine is really doing American job for far less money. So I like that phrase, you're getting bigger bang for your buck by helping Ukraine. So helping Ukraine is first of all the moral thing, the economically prudent thing to do, and the only logical way to go is just really to help Ukraine, because Ukraine is right now doing the job for the rest of the world. It's stopping the biggest aggressor. If that doesn't convince them, the whole money issue, which means spending 10% of United States military budget is enough to cripple Russia. If that doesn't work for them, something is wrong with their head. But focusing on China, you can also explain the argument of the eight axes of evil, which is, Russia, China, North Korea, and Iran. There is no doubt those four countries are working to destabilize the world order as we know it, the democratic world, and going back to the border and enough money to fix it. Like I said, if Ukraine gets all that it needs, United States will not have to spend over $400 billion every year just to deter Russian aggression, and there will be so much more money just to fix the border. So that's my point. All right, go ahead.
With the allocation of money that just recently has been so-called allocated, why doesn't Ukraine hire a PR agency to educate everyone here in the States of what's really happening and why it's important for Ukraine to win and have their independence? I mean, it's
Yeah, no, I understand. So the question was, why doesn't Ukraine, if some of you didn't hear, PR agent to basically act like lobbyist, right, for Ukraine? Yeah, well, first of all, money. Russia is just, Ukraine actually has some registered lobbyists already in the DC doing this. But yeah, it's all about who has bigger pockets. Russia has such huge, budget, and indirectly it's influencing other lobbyists to do Russian bidding. For example, just the budget of Russia that it spends on propaganda is 10 times bigger than all of Hollywood combined. So that's just the scale of the enemy we're fighting here. And yes, it's a slow process. Ukraine really needs to step up its game, but during the war times, it's always the question whether you, help this brigade or battalion. It's just basically about money allocation. So unfortunately, Ukraine just doesn't have enough money, although they should be doing it. But yeah, I want to pass to the gentleman. Maybe they will add a little more.
Yeah, the one thing that's very interesting to me, I live in Tucson, Arizona. There are 4,000 planes, warplanes, parked out there in the desert, just sitting there. I asked some of the congressmen, how much does it cost to store all those planes? How much does it cost to store all those M1 tanks that the Marines don't even want anymore? How much does it cost to store all that ammunition? And not only that, but to demilitarize it. When you demilitarize ammunition, it's a very expensive process. I think I got a figure back just for some ammunition demobilization, $1.5 billion a year, and that's a very slow process. So I said, why not demilitarize it on the Russians' heads? We got this equipment; it's paid for. People don't realize that. A lot of this budget, by the way, is going to go to replace this older equipment that we've given to Ukraine with newer equipment. So it's a win-win for the American taxpayer. The Ukrainian Congress was also handing out sheets where all the jobs are going from all this stuff, where all the jobs are being created in the United States for remanufacturing this. Arizona is going to be a real winner on that because we got Raytheon out there making stuff. So there's your argument right there. It's really very, very cost effective, and I think if I ever get those numbers, it might be that it's a positive for the United States to do that.
Very logical, very logical conclusion, right? Reasoning is if they're there, why not use them? It's more expensive to keep both to maintain.
There's no political will.
It is.
Better for the U.S. environment too.
How much do they live in Afghanistan? Right? It's just like that, it's ridiculous.
By the way, on the marketing business, someone like myself, I've been in real estate for 37 years. The most recent data analysis of the market shows that the public or a person has to be hit 7 times, touches 7 times or more before they make a decision to buy or sell. And we are being besieged with advertisements every second we turn the TV on, even on our phones. So the point is, the battle is basically for the minds and hearts of people. So therefore, my recommendation is get a professional marketing firm to represent you, and they will do it for you because they know the ways to get into the media and press.
And that's what I'm doing in the U.S. right now. Hey, I'm going to provoke you a little. Okay. One of the things not only me, obviously, with you guys here, we know this, we understand it. We are about all this equipment that is somewhere in the desert, not doing anything when it should do something in another place, and et cetera, et cetera. The like political will, the confusion, this and that. So we know all this, and then you go to the true teachers of how to reach out to the Americans, the MAGA, and you see how they work, and you attend their radio shows, and you see, okay, that's how it's done, all right. Because there are some things that, as a European, never will understand about this American ways of things, how to actually get shit done, blah, blah, blah. So, yes, in the seven or more times you have to touch people in a way that they understand, in a way that affect them. Okay, guys, some artists from Lithuania, we're actually doing this right now. It's a little challenge. I mean, yes, guys, if you don't do it, somebody else will. So I mean, it's get going. I mean, it's all there. You have all these professionals, these great, sharp minds that I've met a few in New York City and elsewhere, how to actually formulate the message and how to get it out there. We're crushing in Europe. I mean, Lithuania, we're a household name there. Everybody knows us. We're doing this, we're getting really good. But now we're going a little overseas. So what I want to say here, don't talk, act, do something. It's not easy. It's not going to solve itself like that. But if you do something and you learn in the process, you have these different things to work with, these information, these possibilities, opportunities, etc.
Online masterclass?
No. Reach out to, you have a friend as a friend who is a marketing expert, something like, start there. Don't overdo it. Don't overdo it. I mean, my best teachers in Ukraine back after the war was like people like Donetsk Airport, Avdiivka back in 16, etc. And I was running along the front lines, handing out sniper ammunition to people. And they told me they gave me the lessons, what this is about, and I kind of listened about how Ukrainians wage warfare, and I had no idea. And then, right, okay, this is what it looks like. Okay, then we're going to do this. Something you can't learn, how to. Yeah.
So I would like to ask your estimation in losses of soldiers fighting on the Russian side and the Ukrainian side. Do you have any idea about that?
Meaning killed. Obviously, this is a very tricky topic, and it's a very sensitive and tricky, and we know some of these figures that have been provided by the Ukrainians based on the Russian losses and the Ukrainian losses. I would probably say that, let's put it this way, there are a little less Russians than we would like, and a little few more Ukrainians than we would hope for. Losses in the war are never, ever going to be, confirmed until after the war for various reasons, including for political and for psychological reasons. But I can give you one story as to how this works. I had a conversation with the battalion commander some months ago. He said, we had a battle yesterday. We killed 100 Russians, but they killed 20 of ours. And in the bigger picture, the 20 lost, we lost specialists, good soldiers. There's so much bigger loss in general terms, because Russia is just another 100 guys. But one must understand that yes, over time it's not working in Ukraine's favor. Definitely, that's a fact. And of course we have to do anything we can to save the lives of Ukraine's fighters so they can fight another day and to get back at the enemy. It's war. It's very simple in a way. You have to, yes, it's a relevant question. I have something, but I don't really want to say what I think about it. But basically, it's a major war. And we must understand from a Baltic perspective, we must understand that if for some reason this comes to us, it's gonna be ruthless in so many different ways, and will we be able to stand up against it? Who knows? I hope so. And Ukraine is taking such a burden at this point in terms of this aggression in all all different levels from Russia right now is just unimaginable. And they hold.
So I heard a few times, more than a few times on YouTube from Ukraine War Analytics that Russia may end up in splitting into different regions.
Let's hope for that. Yes, that's one of the goals, obviously, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm not, prognose what's going to happen with Russia in the future, but I know one thing for sure. The answer to the end of this war lies in Ukraine. Russia, I don't really care at this point. I should be honest. Yeah, I mean, we had to figure them out. Of course, yes, eventually maybe we even become friends with them. Maybe, I'm not sure, but let's say. We have to retake the occupied territory of Ukraine. We have to rebuild Ukraine. We have to make. At some point, I'd say we have to give Ukraine two things at this point: weapons and democracy. These two things. Weapons, yes, I mean, obviously, but also democracy. We have to make Ukraine a modern European state. Ukraine has its own issues. I mean, it's a kind of feudal society it's a kind of different dynamics that you might meet. It's not that simple, and we have to help it with both. So it's both NATO and European Union, parallel, same time. If we manage to do that, Russia will solve itself. Because for Russia to lose Ukraine, it's such a blow to their identity, to their that they're not gonna recover from it. Good things come out of it.
As an intel person, I used to have to go out on the limb and say, okay, General, this is what I predict will happen based on the knowledge we have. And yes, I think Russia will fall apart. The centrifugal forces are already there. There are little rebellions here and there, but so far the Rosguardia and FSB have managed to put them down. But, with everybody out fighting in Ukraine, these people are going to feel their oaths and it's going to happen.
Demographics are against Russia. Yeah. It's an old country.
Definitely. Okay, I think we're finalizing this and
everyone, I want to thank everyone coming in today. I want to thank Sing with Ukraine for bringing in our Ukrainian friends. Kestutis, thank you for coming in. Jonas, thank you for just pulling this all out of the presentation, and all of you showing up to here is a tremendous strength coming from Southern California, from the Baltic and the Ukrainian communities, and we need to continue. Contact your congressman. Let's pass this bill in the Senate, and we look forward to the next steps as far as to securing more Ukrainian victory to the end.
Right. Go baffle.com.
I just wanted to echo real quick what Conrad just said, and first of all, to thank our esteemed speakers here, Jonas and Colonel. You guys are bringing so much experience in intel, and thank you so much for this very meaningful discussion. And of course, some of you may not know me. My name is Mykailo Lavrys. I'm the co-founder and president of St. Louis Ukraine Foundation. And on behalf of everyone here on St. Louis Ukraine, I wanted to also thank everyone for coming, and especially I wanted to recognize Go Ukraina members and Southern California Committee on the Holodomor for always, being with us and being this strong voice of advocacy for Ukraine. And everyone here, thank you so much for finding the time today on this beautiful Sunday afternoon. Remember, even one person is a very strong voice for Ukraine. Never waver. Remember that you can influence someone who will influence 10 more people, that will influence hundreds and thousands more. So never stop advocating for Ukraine. This is all our fight. And the world's peace can only begin after Ukraine wins against Russia. So we all have to do everything that we can possibly do. And feel free to reach out to us at any time. And again, thank you so much to Conrad and everyone at Buffalo and the Latvian Center for organizing this beautiful event and yesterday banquet, and Ann Smith, of course, for your tireless work on the Hill. You guys are all doing a tremendous job, and even though we don't have our guests, the foreign chairs for Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia, I wanted also to pass our great thanks for all their work they do in Europe, for being these big advocates of Ukraine in Europe, in European Parliament, and across the world. So thank you to everyone, and enjoy your afternoons.
Bravo, Ukraine.